All right, Wages and Warriors. We got UFC Atlanta this weekend. We have Usman, who is the former champion, actually just mapped out his way back to being on top, which is kind of interesting. And then Buckley, who has been just lighting people up left and right on this win streak. You have Cody Garbrandt, who, just used to be one of the most lethal fighters in the UFC. Now is kind of taking a hit. He's fighting this weekend. You have Edmund, you have Andre, you have Rose fighting an up-and-comer Miranda Maverick. It's going to be a pretty good fight card. But before we get into any of that, I want to recap a little bit of what happened last weekend, which O'Malley and Merab. Fantastic fight. I talked about it last week, but Merab's just constant improvement. We saw in the Umar fight where his stand-up looked impeccable. And, this past weekend, he looked even better. And I think O'Malley's just in a tough spot where he's in his prime, but just so happens probably the best bantamweight fighter we've ever seen is also in his prime. So what do you do? It's kind of a lose-lose situation. Now with O'Malley losing this, he's probably going to drop as number one contender. You have, Umar, who's still waiting to get back from a hand injury. Let's see how long that goes and when he will exactly be back. But what's next for O'Malley? You're probably not going to get a title shot for a little bit because you just lost twice to Merab. And both, obviously this time around he was choked out. But the last fight too was pretty obvious that Merab won it. It wasn't a toss up and like what kind of happened here. But I want to get into what should O'Malley do now. There's been lots of talks, right? Should O'Malley move up in weight? Should O'Malley just stay in this class? What should he do? In my opinion, I think if I'm O'Malley, I looked at what Max Holloway did with the Volkanovski trilogy, right? So he fights Volk. You could argue that he kind of won the first fight. The next two, it really goes Volk's way, right? Max just kind of gets dominated. Volkanovski clearly is the better fighter and clearly the best fighter in that division. Holloway's in a tough spot. He had multiple chances to take out the champion. He can't do it. So what does he do? He goes back through the division and puts up electric performances, right? Just knockouts, just pure fights where you can tell he is light years ahead of this guy. And he did it all in this string of his prime, in the string of him being one of the best strikers in the UFC. And then what happens? He wins a BMF belt. He takes out Gaethje in a very electric fashion. Then he gets a chance, I should say, at being a champion again against Ilia Topuria. And obviously, Ilia takes him out. And again, I think that's just kind of bad luck for Max because Ilia is one of the best fighters we've ever seen. And there's, a pretty good chance that he takes out Charles Oliveira in a couple of weeks. But the lesson and all that, I think, is, look, O'Malley, you are very clearly, he looked improved last fight. He's very clearly the top 3 fighter in the bantamweight division. He's even mentioned it, going up in weight. The guys are stronger. The guys are faster. It's very hard to do. You got to be a certain type of bred fighter, certain type of breed to be able to do that. I look at Merab's situation as I go, you've beaten almost everyone. You haven't fought, Corey Sandhagen, and he'll probably fight him. I think he'll easily win that fight. But how many more fights does Merab have at bantamweight? Realistically, Corey, okay, he's gonna wipe out Corey. Then you give him another. Are you gonna give him a rematch versus Umar? Because he still hasn't really fought in the UFC. He's just coming from Bellator, where he was obviously unreal. But does he deserve a rematch like already against Merab? Does he? So even if Merab, let's just say, goes 2 fights, Corey and Umar, say he wins both because the trajectory he's on probably will. Then what's next for him? I think nothing. And then he's probably going to move up. So if I'm O'Malley, I'm going, okay, this guy realistically has 2 more fights. I know I am better than Corey. I know I'm better than Peter Yan. I know I'm better than Umar. That's probably his toughest match. I'm just going to take some time, think to myself, wait it out, keep training. Because obviously he's at the peak of his powers. And he mentioned it. He thinks he's like entering his prime. I think he actually is in his prime. I don't think what we saw this past weekend is an indication that he's on his decline. I really don't think so. I actually think it's more the opposite. He's on his rise up. It's just, again, you're facing a guy that's the GOAT in that spot. What are you going to do? Just because Charles Barkley lost to Michael Jordan and what was that, 92, 93? I don't know, I wasn't freaking born yet. Didn't mean like he was just suddenly out of his prime. No, that's not how that works. So I think that's what happened with O'Malley. I think you just be patient. You do some favors to UFC, fight some new and up-and-comers. Maybe you go Cheeto for a Triple G fight if you really want to, even though I think he pieced them up pretty good the second time, and it was very clear that he was better. You do that if you want. It's probably gonna be a nice payday. You can go ahead and take Umar fight once he's healthy, prove that you're better than him. That will probably be your most likely option towards a belt, because when Merab eventually does move up, it's probably your turn. Your two names are gonna be tossed in there, so you're gonna have to face him. But I would think before that, I would like not an easy fight, but a turn-up fight where like I can show my dominance. I would prefer that if I was Sean, and I think that's the route he's gonna go. I think it's the best route for him. He can very easily be champion again. He just simply has to wait until Merab's done, and I think Merab's close to being done in that division. He's 34 years old. Does he really want to cut weight like that at 34 years old? So he's going to finish next two fights. Maybe he's going to be 35. Maybe he's going to be 36 by the time that ends. Who knows what his timeline is. Guys, active as hell, so it could be quicker than we think. But maybe it is time for him to go up after those. Maybe he goes with my age, the way I train, how active I want to be, and maybe I want a new challenge. Maybe I want to be a double belt champ. Maybe I want to expand my dominance and prove that I am pound for pound the best fighter in the UFC. That's probably the next step for him, right? So when he does make that move, O'Malley, you're going to be ready. You're going to be at a great spot. And you just got to make sure that, you keep dominating everyone else. I think that's a route for O'Malley. I think that's what you should do. So shining out on that, maybe fight Mario Batista. He's an extrememely good fighter. He's pretty solid, and he's obviously coming off a win. Shout out to everyone that bet that one. A little underdog action there. Obviously, Pena kind of fell apart. So what are you gonna do? Harrison versus Nunez is gonna be an incredible fight. Very much looking forward to that. How much has Nunez been training? Is she still ready to kind of brush off the dust off the pads and kind of get going and on the gloves? We shall see. But just wanted to add that little tidbit in as we wrap up UFC 316. Now let's head to UFC Atlanta this weekend. We'll start off with Cody Garbrandt. Barcelos is who he's facing the bantamweight division. Maybe Amaya versus Garbrandt. That'd actually be the most unfair fight in the world. But Barcelos, look, I think this is it's very hard in this one to look at anything Garbrandt. Cody, again, at one point in time was so dangerous, one of the most dangerous fighters in that division in bantamweight. Kind of odds plus 190 he is if you want to take him straight up to win. I find that kind of surprising. I actually think that'd be a lot worse. But he's still dangerous in the stand-up game. He still can put a lot of damage to you, but that shin is not the strongest. And last time I actually went against Barcelos was my boy Tailbot, and he got kind of his butt beat in that one. So I'm going to fade Cody here. I'm not going to back anything. I think he gets kind of knocked in this one if I had to bet the way it is finished. I think Barcelos kind of takes him out in this one. He's 5.1 symphony strikes landed per minute. He's a hotter fighter. He's 19-5. It's just easy. Fade Cody. That's all for that one. It's not that deep. Then you have Edmund versus Andre Petroski, middleweight division fight. Edmund's won 2 of his last 3, both KO fights. Both just beat the living snot out of people. And then Andre, he's won 3 straight, so all 3 by decision. Kind of both fighters on a little bit of a hot streak, if you will, here. But Edmund, the way I would describe him is he's a swinger, and he's willing to be the highlight and willing to make a highlight. He just really doesn't care. He just wants to brawl. He wants to go. I think for Andre, what I would try to do is use that ground game that you do so well, right? 3.38 takedown average is what he has in fights. I think what he's going to do in this one is shoot on Edmund. He's not going to want to do the stand-up brawl. He's not going to want to do, hey, let's just swing and whoever falls, and the other guy's a champion. I think what Andre is going to do is take this towards the ground. If the crowd's a booing, Andre's a winning. And I think that's where he goes there. And you can find him actually at plus 22 to win that fight. So that's where I'm leaving on this one. The next one, you have Rose versus Miranda Maverick at the lightweight division. Rose, I mean, what can you say about her? Former champion. She's 14-7, 5 first-round finishes. She's coming off a tough loss against Blanchfield. Obviously can beat you in a lot of different ways. She's a black belt in karate and taekwondo. She's facing Miranda. He's on a 4-fight win streak. Very much a jiu-jitsu kind of fighter, if you will. More of a, let's make this a ground and pound, 2.39 takedown average, excuse me. She's very, very dangerous. I don't, her strikes landed isn't bad either at 3.39, so she can also do the damage up top. Rose is the favorite because of the history that she has had in this division and the history that she has had in the UFC. Like I said, she's coming off a very tough loss. I think she's looking to bounce back pretty big here. I don't know if it's going to lean on, her securing a knockout or her securing a submission. I think submission would be very hard to do against Miranda because that's more in her realm. Now, if Rose pulls it off, that's extremely, extremely impressive and something I wouldn't see coming, to be honest with you. But I would say Rose kind of wins this one by decision, and that's where I think that one would kind of go. The last one we have is Usman versus Buckley in the welterweight bout. Usman, the Nigerian nightmare. What a run this guy had, right? Used to just absolutely storm and stomp through this division. He's come across tough times, obviously. He's lost 3 straight. He lost the back-to-back to Leon Edwards. We all remember the fight where he was winning, and Leon just KOs him. And you're like, oh my God, what the hell just happened? This is why this sport's amazing. Then he had Hamza where it just wasn't going well. And you could tell that, Hamza was obviously the better fighter. And Usman's, a lot of the thing on him is that his knees are shot. He's just older. He's just a little bit more beat up. And, he's kind of taking that one on the chin, which is pretty, impressive, I think, and kind of good for him. He's kind of like made fun of the idea and kind of trying to do his best to prove people wrong, that even at 38 years old, I still have a lot left in him. Or left in me, I should say, in his thing. But he's facing Buckley. And Buckley did this weird thing where, since he is, an aspiring champion and like trying to work his way up, when he like did his face off with Usman, he seemed more kind of like, I don't know if shell shocked was the right word, but was kind of like, oh my God, like I'm finding it. Like, this is Kamaru Usman, like one of the best fighters in UFC history. Like, oh my God, the former champ, the guy I watched growing up. Which I get it in a way, right? Like if you're Buckley, there was, I guess, a surreal feeling of like, oh my God, I can't believe I'm here. I can't believe I'm finding this. And Usman was talked about that too. He's like, I always wanted to fight GSP. I thought I could take him. And, if he got that chance, he's like, there'd be, a time where I'd be like, oh my God, I am fighting GSP. And there's like a little bit of that, I'm sure, that happens in other sports as well, where like you're lining up and you're like, oh my God, that is Patrick Mahomes. Like, that is who I'm facing. That is Josh Allen. That is LeBron. That is Curry. That does happen in sports. So interesting that it just kind of happened with Buckley. How does that affect this fight? I would argue not much. I think Buckley's pretty focused on what he needs to do. And he's on a 6-fight win streak. And out of the 6, 3 of those were KOs. Colby was a stoppage. He was beating the snot out of Colby. Colby's wrestling was maybe starting to get there a little bit in that fight. I really don't think so. I think Buckley was piecing him up top too much. And at the end of the day, Colby, you got to do more, do a better job of dodging those punches and taking care of yourself and not taking so much damage that he did take in that one. But that also goes to show how lethal Buckley is in that stand-up game, how lethal he is. If you want to stand there and toss, it's going to be bad for you, man. You're going to get pretty freaking beat up. So what I would go in this is, look, Usman's knees aren't there. I don't know if that chin's even that there. Even if he wants to go, let's slow this fight down. Let's, I'm going to pin you against the cage a little bit. I'm just going to wear you down. Colby tried that and it didn't work. Obviously, I think Usman is better than Colby. But even if Usman goes for that angle on Buckley, I don't think it's going to work at all. I think Buckley's going to bring it back up top, go back and go, all right, we're going to start swinging now. Let's see how good you kind of do and see if you can hang with me. He can't hang with him. So I would take the way I'd bet this is I'd bet on the fight to end within within the rounds, within the distance. Bet it to not go to the distance, I should say. And then I would bet Buckley to win this. If there's a way you would bet it, obviously do not go submission at all. I would take Buckley to knock him the F out. I wouldn't be surprised if this is a second round KO or if this is a fight where maybe at the end of round 1, Usman's corner's like sitting there going, buddy, we got to get going here. What's going on? And someone's like, I guess the Michael Chandler Patty one where he's just like, I can't find my distance. I can't find an angle. I can't find, a chance to shoot on him. Like, I'm in trouble. I'm in a tough spot. I could see that happening in this one. So, we shall see. So I like Buckley, KO, fight not to go the distance, in which way you want it. Now, final one for UFC Atlanta. Thank you guys all so much for listening for Wages and Words with Mario Herron. Make sure to like, share, and subscribe. Comment if you hate it. Comment if you love it. I appreciate it all. And hope you enjoyed the Sean O'Malley thoughts. Maybe more John Jones stuff because he'll probably tweet some stupid crap later on this week. Thank you guys so much for listening. We'll see you next time.